How's it going, guys? John here, the basic expert, and this week we're back on Traveler, classic Traveler specifically, finally. Talking about good games. I'm not going to talk about one D&D for a while now, because it's just not interesting to me. I'd rather talk about games like Traveler than talk about good games that are out there that are very affordable, and pretty darn good games. I really like classic Traveler, and obviously I wouldn't be going over Classic Traveler if I wasn't interested in it and didn't run it myself. So the last video where we talked about Traveler, we talked about space combat and vectors and all that kind of stuff. It seems incredibly complex, but I think the best way to do it is on the table. And quite honestly, a lot of people brought up a lot of good questions, like, and they come up in the rulebook as well. The size and scale of miniatures and all those things like that can affect the accuracy of what you are trying to do. I think my quick fix for that would be to use a hex grid for both, and I'm probably going to make a video on this for combat, for like guns, and when you're on the planet side fighting other people with weapons on the ground. Or on a spaceship fighting weapons. When you're shooting guns at people, I plan on doing a video maybe about this. But using a hex grid and having those hexes specify specific ranges, so it's almost like on a 2D space, like in any direction you got distance and range bands that you can use. And I would go that route, just for the sake of simplicity. But let's continue with the rules as written, and talking about computers. So computers are an important thing here. So computers are, let's just read it here. The computer installed on a ship controls all activity within and is especially used to enhance weapons fire and defensive activity. It also transmits control impulses, so, you know, hitting the throttle, whatever, going faster, for impulses for maneuver and jump drives, and conducts the routine operation of all ship systems. What the computer actually does is based on programs actually installed and operating at any one time. And it goes on to say that computers, for instance, the CPUs are processed simultaneously while programs and storage. So there are programs that are operating simultaneously at one time. Either 1, 2, however many. That's going to depend on the size of the CPU that you have on your ship. And there's also storage, or memory, I guess you could say, where these programs are not being ran, but they are being stored, and you could cycle them out from the programs being ran, put those in storage, and put one of them in storage into the computer. So it's very 1970s sci-fi. You know, again, I've mentioned that quite a few times in my videos discussing this, that this is very like old school 1970s analog technology, very like old school Star Wars or Star Trek in a lot of ways, where, you know, you're looking at, it doesn't look like the technology we even have now. You know, like I've said it before, when we view into the future, we have like our touch screens and even holograms as part of future tech, whereas back then, you know, they had analog computers. So let's just have bigger and what would we assume to be more powerful analog style, like big clunky, big buttons and levers and stuff like that, kind of controls for the computer. And so that's the kind of era this is in. But I think lore-wise, if you're looking to do this, and I know some people, it was my first response to it because I wasn't born in the 70s. I was born in the mid to late 80s, so I more grew up during the late 80s and 90s. So, you know, we had Windows machines at that point, and technology was a little further along than it was in the 70s. So when I looked at it, I was like, oh, this is weird, like, but I can't get rid of it because it is part of space combat. It is part of what resource management for combat. Your computer can only have X amount of programs in it, and you need to cycle programs in and out, and that's part of the strategy of combat. Do I take this program out and put this program in? Do I leave that program in? When is the appropriate time to do that? Because again, at the end of every phase, I'm going to encourage you to go back and watch the space combat video. There's a phase where you can switch programs out of your ship's computer. from storage into the CPU and from CPU into storage. So it's an important part of strategy. So it has to be in there. And I think lore-wise, what would make sense is like this computer is really advanced, and I guess the kind of technology that it would take to plot jumps, to manage living conditions within the ship, and lights, power, the mini nuclear reactions that are happening to power a jump. You know, that's essentially how ships work in the Traveler universe. These are all very, I would assume, I'm not an expert on computers or science or any of these sorts of things. I would rule that these are very like energy and data and memory hogging programs that need to be ran. So you could say that by the time all that's done, all the stuff necessary for keeping your ship and the people on it alive, there's going to be a need for there's going to be limited space on these computers. I don't know. That's just the thought that came in my head, or just run with it like it's retro future. That's kind of what classic Traveler has to be at this point. Partly is retro future. So it gives an example here. It says, for example, a Model 1 computer has a CPU capacity of 2 and an additional storage capacity of 4. The computer might have in it 6 programs, each of size or space 1. Return fire, predict 1, gunner, interact, auto evade, maneuver, and target. Of these 6, only 2, the capacity limit of the CPU, can function at any one time in one phase. In the laser return fire phase, both target and return fire programs would be required, and only those programs could be used with this capacity CPU to affect laser return fire. During a laser fire phase, as before, only 2 programs could be used. Target is required, but the player could select between predict 1 or gunner interact for the program to be processed, depending on which would provide the greater benefit. So you could try and use the predict program, or have the gunner just manually fire the gun if you wish, whichever is going to be more advantageous. And this is during the computer or programming phase. So it gives you a list of software here in the book, various ones, what they mean, and if you scroll, you got rules for writing computer programs, which is very interesting. So player characters can and should seek out new and different computer programs to assist them in the use of the performance of their spacecraft. Generally, writing a program requires computer skill, also some skill which relates to the actual task being programmed. So you're going to want to have computer skill and a gunnery background in order to understand how to program a gunnery program that would like maybe target a ship or something like that in space. The computer software list indicates in 2 columns the computer skill required as a minimum to write the program, any other skill required, and the throw per week of work to succeed. Computer skill above the required level is allowed as a DM on the throw to succeed. The other skill required may be possessed by another person helping the programmer. So you could have the gunner assisting the programmer with programming this. This is where it gets interesting, though. You have a fatal flaw within your programming here. So any home-written program may have a fatal flaw concealed within. This bug may not appear until the program is really needed. Referee should note the potential for a flaw, and a roll is required. Suggested roll 11+ for the bug to appear. So the GM is going to secretly, the referee is going to secretly roll. If it rolls an 11 or more, I guess you could apply various modifiers as well to this if you wanted to. There could be a bug that could be problematic for it. For instance, you have the predict program on, and all of a sudden the player goes to use it, and on a roll of 11 or more, actually the program is bugged out right now, and you can't actually use that program. You can't target the enemy. That could be a real big problem in space combat. You got rules for small craft computers, and then you have computer software lists and the throws required to make them. So you have, and it's cool, it's organized by offensive programs. You get all of them here. Defensive programs, routine programs, these are ones you needed for like jumping and all that kind of stuff. Anti-hijack, you have anti-hijack programs that would like lock doors and all that kind of stuff, so that if someone got on your ship, you could keep them from getting to the bridge and taking control of the ship, and then you and your guys can go through and sweep up the pirates before they get to the bridge. Lots of different stuff like that. And I would say that that it's not explicit here, but players could maybe get creative, and if GMs are willing to do that, they should allow players to get creative and maybe make programs that are outside the bounds of what's here. So players can for sure make any of these programs if they wish, but they maybe they working with the referee, they can come up with a different program that does something new and creative. I don't know, just a thought to throw out there that could be cool and interesting. Now we get to experience. So this is where it gets interesting, and where Traveler is, and Classic Traveler in particular, is very different even from other versions of Traveler, even modern versions of Traveler. And that's that it's really hard to get skills, new skills, in Classic Traveler. The skills that you start out with are generally the skills your character is going to be stuck with. There isn't much improvement as far as there's no experience points. There's no like milestone leveling like what Cephas engine uses, where you get an experience point at the end of an adventure or something like that, and then spend 10 experience points and you can upgrade a skill. There's nothing like that. So I think Mark Miller in his rules here explains it best. He says, as characters travel through the universe, they already know their basic physical and mental parameters. Their basic education and physical development have already occurred, and further improvement can only happen through dedicated endeavor. The experience which is gained as the individual character travels and adventures is, in a very real sense, an increased ability to play the role which he or she has assumed. That might not be to the liking of a lot of different players in your playgroup. They might not They might look at their skills and be like, I gotta work for like 4 years to get good at this one thing. So let's look at limited self-improvement. So limited personal development and experience is possible in the sense of increase in abilities and skills. Such potential for increase is possible in 4 specific areas, only one of which may be attempted at one time: education, weapon expertise, other skills, and physical fitness. So the thing with these is that it is limited personal development. It is self-improvement. A lot of these are, you have to go on a very rigorous training schedule for your character. You do a throw to see if your character is going to be dedicated to the program in order to do it. And then you're going to throw various things to see if you're successful at learning things. And it's going to take, like for instance, education. A character with an education characteristic lower than his or her intelligence characteristic may improve education level through the use of correspondence courses and tutoring. In general, such courses or tutors have a base price of 50 CR per week, 50 credits per week. Generally, 1 session per week is taken, though 2 per week are possible. After 50 sessions are completed, the character's education level is increased by 1. In 1 4-year period, it is possible to increase the education characteristics a maximum of 6 levels. So it's going to take a lot of time. You got to do a lot of study, and you got to dedicate yourself just to that. You have weapon expertise, which is you got to do on a training program for weapon expertise, and then the bonus is only temporary. If you do not keep up the practice, over time, the skill increases are lost unless the program is extended or continued formally for another 4 years. So you have to keep training if you want to keep those bonuses. And this is like 4 years in game time, not in real time, obviously, but in game time. So that makes the Bro SR likes to talk about one time. That makes character development pretty tough if you're going to do that in Classic Traveler. You have skill improvement in a fashion similar to weapon expertise. A character may temporarily improve his skill in another field by dedicating himself to it for a program of 4 years duration. Only 2 skills may be chosen, and the individual must already have a level of at least 1 in each skill. Skill level reverts to the original level at the end of the program. If the program is continued for a second 4-year period, the new skill level becomes permanent at the end of that period. 8 years of study, like get a doctorate in whatever it is you're trying to do. I don't personally like these rules. I would change them personally at my table, because part of the fun of role-playing games, and Traveler's trying to be, again, very hard sci-fi. It's not trying to be D&D. But I do think that there could be a little more give here, and later editions of Traveler deal with this. They're a little more forgiving, they're a little more favorable towards personal development for characters, as they improve. Again, Cephas Engine, Cephas Deluxe, the Cephas Engine all offer ways that are much shorter. They take weeks rather than years of study in order to improve a skill. So it's a little more forgiving. I mean, Mongoose Traveler 2nd Edition does it. I think you're able to improve skills while you're in downtime in jump space. You know, during those 2 weeks, there's nothing else to do. You might as well sit there and improve a skill. So I would look to those other editions of Traveler and potentially borrow from those in order to see how you'd want to do this if you don't like these rules. You might want to play the rules as written. You might want to play the game raw, and there's nothing wrong with that. It wouldn't necessarily be to my taste or to my players' taste. So if you're going for a long-term campaign, if you're doing like one-shots, which is often what I use a lot of Classic Traveler for, is little one-shot scenarios, it's not that big of a deal. Characters start out with those skills, they're that character, and then it's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. But for long-term campaigns, players might want to become better at certain things over time, especially as they become hardened veterans. Let's say you're doing a military campaign, and they've been able to survive for a really long time, and then been in some hairy situations, and they've come through the other side. I personally think that those sorts of characters should be rewarded, and that a character that has been through that kind of stuff is going to be infinitely better than when that character was when they started. I think that's just a fact. It's not just as I kind of disagree with Mark Miller here, where it's not just the player gets better at playing their character. That's your experience points. A lot of players, and I totally understand why, are not going to be too favorable to that concept. But, you know, it is what it is. So, and then he says here, the above is the only ordinary method of self-improvement available to characters. Highly scientific or esoteric methods of improving personal skills and characteristics are logically available, provided the individuals search hard enough for them. Such methods could include RNA intelligence or education implants, surgical alterations, military mercenary training, and other systems. Alternatives to the methods above methods must be administered by the referee. So I appreciate that he gives you this very harsh system of self-improvement, and he just kind of says, you know, if you don't like it, the referee can do whatever he wants. And there could be relevant story information. Let's say again we do the military campaign one, or their mercenaries and their recruits. The mercenary company might, or the military might, will probably invest in some training or some upkeep of training. Maybe the costs for education and training are paid for by the mercenary company as an employee of them, and that could be part of the campaign. And so the characters can keep improving these their weapon skills, for instance, or their physical attributes like physical fitness and whatnot, because it's in the interest of the military and the mercenary company they're in to keep them in that kind of shape. And you can kind of work it into the campaign and into the game that way. But it's not going to you're not just giving it to them either, I guess, because that's the other side. Because this is the thing that Traveler's kind of loosey-goosey on, is that there's no hard and fast. Well, there is hard and fast, and it's really hard in order to improve skills. But I appreciate, again, this defaulting to the referee, defaulting to the game master, that it's up to them in order to figure out what's going to be best for the play group and how they want their characters to advance, progress, and gain skills. I like the idea of implants and other sorts of things. You can get into cybernetics here, and give your player characters like certain cybernetics that improve a weapon skill. Maybe they get like a cybernetic eye that, you know, when they're sighting down their rifle, improves aim or something like that. Equipment can do it as well. You have the equipment charts here in combat, you know, for the various kinds of things that your character can do. If I could get to it. So here, you know, you got the attack matrices and weapons tables and all that kind of stuff. You could look at this and be like, you know, when the players find a weapon, like say a laser carbine that has a telescopic sight that's like really good, you know, or a folding stock, or some kind of shoulder stock or electronic sight that makes it better in certain situations, and you could apply it to this attack matrix if you wanted to as well. It's totally a viable method as well. So I think that's gonna do it for this video, guys. I don't want to. Next was drugs, and that I feel like we went over computers and now character advancement, and I don't want to overdo too many topics in one video. And this one's already like 20 minutes long. So I think that's gonna do it for this one as far as Classic Traveler. I think for a lot of play groups, the skill advancement might be a big turnoff for a lot of players, but again, keep in mind Mark Miller and the book gives you free reign here to change that however you see fit. Whatever you think needs to be done, you are given the ability to change it here, and you should if your group doesn't like it. But next we'll talk about drugs. We got different kinds of drugs that affect certain things, and these are also ways of improving your character, or different kinds of things like that. There's like, you know, ones that avoid aging, like anagathic drugs, so which are kind of taboo in the Traveler universe and obviously very expensive. We'll maybe talk a little bit about them in the next video, and I think after that it's trade and commerce, and we're getting into book 3 after that. So we're getting close to out of book 2, and book 3 is pretty interesting. That's where a lot of fun stuff is as far as world generation, all of those things like that. So that'll be a lot of fun. I look forward to that. I hope this video was interesting. If you like what I do, please check out my Subscribe Star supporters get a dungeon map a month, which I owe you guys one. There should be one dropping today or tomorrow for this week on my Subscribe Star. They also get an adventure a month as well, so make sure to check that out as well. That's for different tiered supporters and whatnot, so check that out if you like what I do. I also stream on Monday evenings. Usually Victor Gorchev, the scrying Dutchman, is on there with me, and we usually talk about games and our tabletop role-playing games, the hobby itself in general. It's always a good time. I have a lot of fun on those streams. Sometimes we talk to guests and whatnot that are always interesting to talk to. So yeah, link to Classic Traveler as usual will be in the video description. Please check that out. Help supports the channel that way as well. And check out the other links down there too. I'm on Big Geek Emporium, which is the new drive-through-RPG competitor, which is really cool. And excited to be on there. Gonna have more content on there soon. Hopefully in September, I'll be able to upload some more stuff over there that is on drive-through-RPG. And I think that's it. More content to come, more stuff to come, more Traveler to come, and I think it will be, I'm looking forward to it. So like, subscribe, share, whatever. I don't care. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.